Trusty Ape, Trusty Ape, hashtag Trusty Ape Podcast, hashtag Stupid Monkey Philosophy. We're gonna do a little sidebar, little side piece. I was thinking about a few things. I didn't really bring up stuff that's been going through my head, so I do have some talking points written down here. But I want to start the stream with what's a thing I wrote? Just a little thing I wrote. Inspired by my therapist, yeah. Used a term I hadn't heard in a while. It's not very common outside of sobriety circles, but what one might call binge drinking, but some people call it going on a bender. So this was called Bender, I think, for some reason. I don't know. Okay. The drunk doesn't choose when to binge. They soften into it. Their will to reason slips away slowly without their realizing that it has. They tell themselves, I'll just have one more and it'll be all right. I'll stop. But they don't stop. They won't stop. They can't stop. They have no choice but to drink. Because they're drunk, they have no choice. They're on a bender, man. All right. So for those who don't know, we're going to put the Stoned Ape Theory into a nutshell here. In the thumbnail, there's the guy with the research that McKenna used, but this, basically, this guy, Terence McKenna, he's pretty popular. He's been around for a while. I guess he wrote this book in like the early 90s. But he's been on like Rogan, Sam Harris, and all those guys. I think he gets around. Part of the hippie culture thing, right? And so let's do this if I can. In his book, McKenna argued that due to desertification in Africa, humans retreated to the shrinking tropical forests following cattle herds whose dung attracted the insects that he states were certainly a part of the human diet at the time. According to his hypothesis, humans would have detected psilocybe cubensis from this due to it often growing in cow pats. According to McKenna, access to and ingestion of mushrooms was an evolutionary advantage to humans' omnivorous hunter-gatherer ancestors, also providing humanity's first religious impulse. He believed that psilocybin mushrooms were the evolutionary catalyst from which language, projective imagination, the arts, religion, philosophy, science, and all of human culture sprang. McKenna's argument has largely been rejected by the scientific community, who cite numerous alleged discrepancies within his theory and claim that his conclusions were arrived at via a fundamental misunderstanding of Fisher's studies. That's the guy Fisher. The Stoned Ape Theory is a controversial theory first proposed by American, I guess I did these backwards, ethnobotanist and mystic Terence McKenna in his 1992 book, The Food of the Gods. The theory claims that the transition from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens and the cognitive revolution was caused by the addition of psilocybin mushrooms, specifically the mushroom Psilocybe cubensis, into the human diet around 100,000 years ago, using evidence largely based on studies from Roland L. Fisher from the 1960s and 1970s. He attributed much of the mental strides made by humans during the cognitive revolution to be the effects of psilocybin intake found by Fisher. So that's the theory in a nutshell. He thinks that some monkeys ate some mushrooms and grew more smarter, right? Kind of, yeah, something like that. And it kind of makes sense. Me and my peoples, we used to have a similar theory about the use of pot, right? We thought that probably early humans were using pot to expand their minds, man, and probably for medicinal purposes, and then you can maybe have a spiritual experience. I don't know. On that note, I got ripped off buying weed on the street today. So I've never in my life had this happen to me before. And I haven't bought weed on the street in a long time. There's this dude selling bud on the corner. He showed me. He had one of those like the dispensary sacks, but so you couldn't see into it. It wasn't like a regular plastic baggie. So he opened up the top and he showed me a couple nuggets. I said, "That looks pretty good." And he's like, "Oh, well, this is like a half ounce, And then he kept driving the price down, driving the price down. I'm like, okay, this guy's like desperate to get rid of this pot or something. And I don't know what's going on. Maybe he just really needs some fucking cash, But I didn't have it. But I was like, okay, just break me off a little bit. I'll buy a 20 sack off of you. Okay. And so he was acting a little nervous, and I'm like, okay, well, he's a a black dude in a fucking rich white neighborhood trying to sell bud on the corner, so maybe he's a little paranoid. It makes sense, okay. Uh, and so he breaks it off and he hands me like 4 nugs, or what I thought was 4 nugs. I didn't really look too hard at it. It's okay. There's a few buds, not typically what I expect for a 20 sack these days, but okay, stuffed in my pocket. Went about my business, and I got home and I pull it out, and this fucking guy. See if I can show this to you. This motherfucker. He gave me 3 pieces of actual pot, and then he gave me this, which is a hunk of dry wasabi. It's fucking wasabi. At first I pulled it out and I'm like, what is that? Is that a piece of hash? I'm like, something's not right about the consistency of this stuff. And I pulled a piece off and I tasted it, and sure enough, it is fucking wasabi. Never in my life, man. So yeah, that happened. But fortunately, somebody else gifted me a little bud here. So I realized after the fact that my last stream was not lit. I was not stoned last night, just as I'm not stoned now starting this stream. I tend to, as you see, I get on these and I get motor mouth a little bit, just a little bit. So tonight the stream's going to get lit, and I want to see if you can see the difference as we go through this. As I get high, you tell me when I start to slow down, man. All right. Totally, because this smells pretty freaking good. So this is what I got from a friend. That is not wasabi. That's pretty good, but I can't shine the light on it. Yeah. So Alexandra acknowledged my my little backstage video from last night. I went over there to say hi. I noticed she was kind of on one, and that's what she said. She was drinking. I was like, yeah, I figured that. But and I was going to tell her that those people in her side chat were fucking starting to say some gnarly shit. I didn't think she was paying attention to it, and that she wasn't. So as I was in there, I heard her reading it, and I was like, okay, she figured it out. But yeah. I'm still trying to segue. She was pleasant about it. Still trying to segue into having a conversation. I think she's just a very interesting person, and I like to make my way around the interwebs, meeting new and interesting people, especially if they've been members of the Carterverse. I just have to ask more about that. What is the Carterverse? See, I'm trying to break this up by hand because I didn't bring a grinder with me this time. Like an idiot, because, well, I expected to have gone home, but of course that didn't work out. So I want to use my hair trimming scissors again. It might take a little bit longer than usual. This bud's pretty sticky. Make sure we break it down all right, get the right consistency here so the joint will burn okay. I have a little like a clay pipe here, but it's not great. It's not great. But it is from Mexico. So, and for this reason, I had to, be real with myself as far as my goals, my expectations, and what I'm trying to do. Been talking a lot about, well, you want to be the driver or do you want to be the cop? Well, can you be the driver? Can you be the cop? Well, problem is, as long as I remain a stoned ape in any capacity, that ain't gonna happen. There's a lot of jobs that you still can't get, even with recreationally legal weed, like state and federal jobs, any job that requires you to transport people or large loads, like a truck driver. Can't do that because they can randomly piss test you at any time. And the fact is that we don't have more sophisticated methods of testing for weed that can actually tell you like when the person actually smoked weed, right? It's like I could have smoked weed 2 weeks ago and I could still test positive for it, and then they'll say, oh, okay. So, that all being said, I was, thinking I would find some crafty way to get around the drug testing system or something, but that's probably not the best way to go about it. That's going to get you in more trouble when you do get caught, because you probably will. The consequences, whatever license you got, you're going to lose it. Whatever job you get, well, a lot of these places will give you a chance. They'll send you to a rehab, and that's your one and only chance. And if you mess up again after that, then you're gone. And that's the policy for most of these guys. And so that's, and I think it's weird because what society tells us is that it's okay to drink and use tobacco, and even go further back than that. Is that caffeine? Caffeine, is widely accepted stimulant. And it's like everybody could go and have their morning coffee, go to work, get all jittery and jacked up. You might be able to kill somebody and blame it on fucking caffeine stimulation. I don't know. It's like a fucking Twinkie defense. So I'm like, okay, so how are we at this place in society where it's like commonly accepted that weed doesn't make people, I mean, the worst thing it'll probably do is make you goofy and it'll make you sleepy, right? Doesn't cause severe withdrawal symptoms. It doesn't cause, be violent or emotional like you might with alcohol, more commonly at least. And yet, I'm like, nope, we're not going to have it. We're not going to have it. It's a Schedule 1 controlled substance, sir. And even when I was in court for my older daughters, before we had a recreational pot, I had a medical card, and it was brought up in court that I used medical marijuana, and the judge, gave me the third degree on it, and I said, if I had any other prescription drug from a doctor, you wouldn't be saying shit. It's only because it's medical pot that you're acting like I'm a freaking druggie and I can't take care of my kids. And there were other factors involved in that, but I thought of all things to be brought up, me smoking pot, it's like, what the fuck, man? But the judge put it into his consideration, even though it was a legitimate medical prescription, which I don't think they should be able to do, right? And then the same goes for these jobs. These jobs are not going to be like, I don't care if you have medical pot, you still can't do it. So you don't get to do that. All right, here we go. We're sparking it up. Got it rolled, man. Finally got it rolled. It's hard to roll a joint while talking. That's pretty tasty. I have to make sure to get the right. Yes, I did shave. Finally, I had a fucking neck beard going on. Okay. Now we got it. And we're starting to get stoned. I didn't smoke. Well, I had a little tiny bit this morning from what I got out of that guy. Just a couple hits, just to level me out. I got through the whole day without fucking drinking, no alcoholic shakes, no fucking bullshit. So yeah, I figure I deserve a treat. Yeah, and I mean yeah, except for that little bit of bunk I got from that guy. I'm still holding on to this wasabi. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. For some reason, I feel like I have to keep it as a reminder. So there's these other theories about like, well, I don't even think it's a theory. I think there's evidence of the rabbis in the very old Jewish temples, like pre-Christian Jews or something like that, burning like massive quantities of hash in the temple. And there's a big story about that. And then more recently, there's this story about a pastor at a church who started a marijuana cultivation project at the church, and the youth. It's a youth program, so it's basically that's his thing. Like, oh, we're gonna grow weed for the community, and we're gonna have the kids come into the church and do the labor to grow the plants, and so they're gonna learn about cultivation, and we're gonna do services. And what's up, Halsey? Good to see you. Yeah, I can't remember that guy's name, but that's another interesting one we could look at once I get the power to watch the videos. He's just like an interview on some news program or something. But at the same time, I think that's like the best way to go. Like for me, I do have this feeling like pot, like psilocybin, do have a purpose, right? Like other than just the fact that they interact with organisms such as ourselves in like such a way, it could be perceived as nature's medicine. It could be perceived as a an experience enhancement. You'd say that. Say, hey, having a bad day, have some of nature's medicine. No. Yes, DMT. And ayahuasca, I think I was reading about. So I only more recently did, well, I tried DMT once, but it was bunk DMT years ago. I didn't get anything off of it. But then when I did DMT a couple years ago, I got I got pretty fucking yeah, I got pretty crazy. But I was coming off some other hard shit too, and I was just having a really fucking rough night. So I think that was probably not the best way to have the experience, but I got through it. I told the guy who gave it to me too. He was sitting there laughing at me. And he said, "You're fucking trying to kill me, man." And then I just fucking lost it. I ended up freaking lying down we're in a parking lot, and I was like, I ran around the other side of the RV, this RV that was there, to hide from my friend. And then I started talking to the side of the RV, and then I ended up lying down next to the RV, and I started talking to the stars. It was pretty gnarly. Um, but I never saw any of those like what do they call them? Those like freaky interdimensional people. I didn't see any of that shit unless the stars count, because they were definitely talking to me. Is ayahuasca the same as DMT? Okay, I wasn't sure. Right, it did seem like that, like just letting go of a lot of shit. Like, I mean, I had some degree of fun, but I was worried about legitimately losing my shit, like legitimately losing my mind. I've only had a couple trips that were that harsh where I was like, "Am I gonna come back?" The other time was with I got a bunch of mushrooms from my friend who he himself had freaked out. I found him in his closet after his birthday party, and he had a bunch of mushrooms left. He's like, "Take these, I don't want them," and so I ended up tripping out for like I think it was like 3 days. I always try to say it was like a full week, but I think it was like 3 days solid. I was tripping, and yeah, that was quite an experience. But at some point, I was like, I have no sense of time right now. It was like I well, anyway, I saw one of my friends at the time, and because we had seen each other at the party or before the party, and then she came over like the next day, and I was like, "Remember that party, like a week ago?" She was like, "Dude, that was the day before yesterday." So I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So I'm trying to tell the story. It's a lot easier in hindsight. That was a good one. That was a good one. I've never had a bad trip on mushrooms. Like, even that time, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm ever gonna come down from this, but I would be okay with that. I would be fine with that. And then if you're a Christian, you gotta believe, I mean, or any type of religious believer, you'd have to believe that God put marijuana here, man. God made marijuana, or Allah, or whoever you believe in. He made the mushrooms and the psilocybin and the DMT. Oh, got you. Thanks for coming, Housey. I probably won't be on too much longer. I'm almost to the end of my little list here, and I do have to go to bed at a reasonable hour. I'm going out to the lake with my cousin, my big cousin. Tomorrow we're gonna go out rafting, hang out, have a few beers, and talk shop. We both like to adventure, so it'd be good for the soul, if you believe in one of those or whatever, mind and body. Um, so that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. A little unwind. Did I have something else to do tomorrow? I think that was it. And then I'm going to go home for like a few hours because Monday, I've totally forgot. I've got like three things going on now. I've got a job interview, I've got therapy, and I've got my deep cleaning on my teeth, which I'm told is going to be a pretty lengthy process. It's going to take like 2 hours. So, and they've got me scheduled in for the end of the day, of course. So I'll be his last patient, I suppose, and we'll see what kind of work he does. Hopefully, they'll be able to get like some whitening and shit done. That'd be great. Then my teeth will look like marshmallows in the sky. So that's what I got. I'm still smoking. Have I slowed down significantly? I mean, it wasn't that big of a joint. That's some good pot. Burning nice and slow. I think it only went out once while I was running my mouth. But yeah, that'd be another one. It'd be good to have some people on for talk about different theories like this, the suggestions people might have, because I mean it's all theoretical at this point, but of course we know there nobody knows how long we've been doing this shit, right? They just know like as long as there's been recorded history, these things have existed, and we have records of. So we don't have records of a time before people were doing them. So it kind of stands to reason that at one time all this shit was just as normal as picking an apple. But how long was it before they figured out how to smoke it? That's what I'm wondering. And how would they smoke it? Like, who invented the first weed pipe, man? These are types of things I'm interested in speculating on, even though we can never prove it. Um, but I imagine they probably started out by eating, pretty much everything. Humans, the early humans, human ancestors, apes, or whatever. They just walk around eating random shit, and they'd be like, "Ooh, that's good. That's bad. That one killed me. Oh, that one made me feel kind of funny." And then I fell asleep, and then I woke up and I was hungry, and that was the one. And then when did they go from like, "I'm gonna eat this stuff" to, "Hey, let's see what happens when we burn this stuff"? So they probably just threw it in a fire or something, right? And they're like, "All right, that smells pretty good. Throw more of it on there." Big bonfire. Now everybody's feeling it, right? Like a fucking 500-foot radius or something. However close you have to be standing to a big old weed bonfire. I imagine the early weed probably wasn't very good though, right? Like we didn't know how to, cultivate strains like we do now, so it would be all, you know, different variety. But the plant itself is like it's hard to get them started, so they probably would have been kind of sparse, right? And once they get to tree status, they're very, very resilient, and they can go for generations and generations, right? But then these people, if they're picking them and they're consuming or burning the flower, and they don't know about the seeding process, right? Then you have that problem where you're destroying the seeds. Yeah. Who was the first person to cultivate it? I'm sure we could find out who the first person to cultivate in the United States was. They probably have a record of that somewhere. You think? One of the founding fathers or something? So the theory here for me is to actually round this whole thing off. There's some point behind some of this. Is that of all the things that I want to give up, I want to give up tobacco. I want to give up alcohol, or at least, be much more moderate than I have been. Well, there's no part of me that actually wants to quit smoking pot. I got people telling me I should quit smoking pot, primarily because, for the sake of, I guess, my kids, whatever that means. I don't really know what that means because I'll get into that. But for the sake of employment, better employment. You can get better employment. You can get it now if you just quit smoking pot. Of course, it's not necessarily true. I mean, if I'm not going to pass the pre-employment drug test, are they going to give me, they're going to be like, okay, we'll put you into training and then we'll give you 2 more weeks to, no, it's not going to work out like that, right? Or they're just going to take my word for it and be like, all right, we'll just drug test you after 30 days and, hope for the best. Yeah. I don't know how all that works out, man. That mean I have to actually fucking dry out for 30 days. Then fuck goes. So, the whole thing. But I feel like, I'm pretty like kind of high strung person most of the time. I'm like I have trouble sitting down and focusing, and like this helps me do that. If I have trouble sleeping, use a little bit more, it helps me do that. But I do feel like I'd like to be a more moderate pot smoker. And I was doing that for a while when I smoke less cigarettes, I smoke less pot, and I feel like I get better effect off of it. Um, yeah, yeah, I definitely think that was a thing. I remember somebody telling me when I was younger, I thought they were full of shit, that there's something about the way that, like the fluid buildup in your lungs and shit that occurs, especially with cigarettes and cigars, that like blocks there's not as much of the THC that gets through because it gets kind of like blocked by but I don't know if there's any truth to that. But if you think about it, nicotine as a stimulant is automatically going to counterbalance the effect of pot, So, you know, that's like, I used to do a wake and bake with a cup of coffee, like rips and sips, like fucking, like look at the trees over there. It's just like a morning routine. You'd be like, while I'm getting my morning pep, I'm also like, kind of like, is that the 3rd time I went out? Put a little bit of a damper on it. Because I drink strong coffee, man. I will fucking start getting the jitters. I hardly ever drink coffee anymore. I had a cup of black coffee, though, which I brewed it at 6 o'clock, and I didn't finish it till 9 o'clock tonight. So that might also be why I'm a little hyper. I drank it obviously very slowly. It was a small cup. It's like an 8-ounce cup or whatever. But, yeah. Trying to finish this joint, man. Get on 30 minutes. Yeah, I think weed makes me a nicer person. Generally, I mean, there's a point where you don't want to get too stoned and be too stoned all the time, and I'm enjoying, spending some time not being stoned and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. Without this moment, like smoking with my friends at practice, it doesn't even have to affect my job. And to be quite frank, though, I think I'm a better driver when I'm stoned, so I don't get road rage as bad, So There's that too. I mean, I know I could take other shit for that, but this is nature's fucking miracle, man. Why would I take some pharmaceutical shit when, God gave weed to us, man? Comes from Mother Earth, my dude. Of course, then there's that other argument. Like, just because it's natural doesn't mean it's good. Although with Sam Harris, being mauled by a bear is perfectly natural. But I don't think this is quite on that level. But yeah. In this case, I think it's an exception. The damage to my lungs is minute. Like, it depends on when I smoke it, I think, more as to whether it affects like my memory and my cognitive function. Like, I think, yeah, like if I'm stoned, like at work or something, I definitely wouldn't, like, my memory wouldn't be as clear. I've also had days like if I go in with a hangover, it's the same thing. Like, as like today, I had like a very acute memory. The person, I had to describe the person I was looking at, and then in hindsight, write the report. Do all that. And it's like, how much detail did you get? Oh yeah, we got down to the fucking trim on his fingernails or whatever. That type of thing. Not quite that detailed, but didn't need to be. The bare bones, but you got the important shit down, and then you took important shit in before that too, and that kind of registered in my brain, like, because I had a cop stop and talk to me, and we had a bolo out, and so he gave me subject description, and basically call us immediately. I was like, okay, cool. And I was, doing my beat, a little extra and walking around and looking for the guy in all the cracks and crevices around there. And, not if he's hiding here, but across the street or whatever, you get it on, widen the perimeter. And, I didn't see anything, but, I had to kept that descript in my head. And I was like, okay, we got, so this is the model I'm going after today. And then so when it happened, I was like, okay, got a good descript on the guy. And was able to recall it without having to reference my notes, because of course I had notes, but I didn't have to look at them. At the end of it, I went and double checked the report after I did it, but I tested myself by writing it without, what I mean. I described that oddly because I'm kind of high now, but I done checked my work after I wrote the goddamn report. Like I'm my own teacher or something. This thing kind of fell apart on me. I mean, the cherry fell out of it, and it's. I don't want to start again. It's getting pretty short, so we call it good. But at least we finished that one joint. Yeah, 34 minutes almost. Yeah, it works for me. It's a decent one. I like this pot. So that is the tale of the Stoned Ape and his plight with reality. But you've still got to be the unreasonable man and demand that the world meet you where you are. So that's what I got for you, and we'll kill it at 35 minutes. I want to thank Halcyonic Kaiju for coming by, and whoever else was watching. I saw you lurking. All right, and we'll see you next time. Much love. Be well. You know the rest.